Some of the steps in this video are hazardous, and I haven't included all of the safety steps, so please verify all safety measures with an external source before attempting PCB manufacture.
Now we move on to part 2. If you're curious about how I designed this and you haven't already watched that video, feel free to click this link right now. If not, let's get started. First part is I'm going to be printing on some transparencies here. I just happen to have some laser transparencies. I cut them in half so I don't have to use as much because I'm just, printing up a couple boards that fit on half of one. Check it against the light. Yep, it looks nice and dark. It needs to be dark in order to work in the process. Then I go and I cut my copper in order to fit all of the designs. Sometimes I'll do them individually, but it's easier if you just panelize it into one large panel. Then I clean the boards. I'm using acetone this time. Sometimes I'll use steel wool or whatever not. I experiment around. Here is the wrist-on. I get this from Tech Place. It's in the Czech Republic. And you want to keep it somewhere that it's nice and dark. And I use an LED light here so that it doesn't expose. You peel off one side of the protective coating. And now, underwater, we apply that gel side, the side that we took off, and just an edge. Apply an edge of it to the copper circuit board. We take the copper circuit board, I put it between two pieces of paper, and send it through the laminator. This causes the gel to really fix firmly to the PCB. I cut it off along with the sacrificial paper, and now we move to exposing. This is a UV grow bulb. It produces lots of UV, unlike my work lamp here. First, I'm going to peel off the outer protective layer, which is the last protective layer on the wrist-on, and I'm going to prepare the transparency. We're going to want to make sure that we have the transparency oriented correctly, which is ink down. Otherwise, we'll print off an inverse of our circuit boards, which are completely useless. And we're going to use 3-in-1 oil, both to prevent the transparency from sticking, as well as to make the interface nice and uniform, so that the index of refraction doesn't change and cause certain areas to underexpose and other areas to overexpose. I find that by making it nice and uniform, squeegeeing out any bubbles, and making that interface as thin as possible, you can get really nice high quality prints. And as you can see, I'm squeegeeing it out, ready for exposure, and it's going. You'll notice that over a little bit of time, after about 30 and 40 and 50 seconds, the bulb starts putting out a lot more UV. So the first minute or so isn't really that used. Now, as you start to enter the second and third minutes, you'll notice that the outside begins to cure. And by cure, I mean really expose. It turns purple, which means that it will not come off in the development process. Now, the inside is starting to expose. And around 4 minutes, I let this go a little bit too long, which caused trouble later on in the process. You turn off the bulb, and now we can peel off the transparency, and you'll see what's underneath. Look at it. Look at that. All the areas where it's been exposed are now purple. Now, we're going to develop the board. First, make sure to wipe it completely clean, because that 3-in-1 oil does not play very well with the developer. I think this is sodium carbonate. I don't really remember. I just buy it from the same place, Tech Place, and they have the right developer. I mix it in with water, and I start to rub very lightly all of the areas. You'll notice that it starts to really eat away at anywhere that the UV wrist-on was not exposed. So it's starting to look like copper, really clean. Unfortunately, I overexposed a little bit, so it's really hard to get off. And so as you can see, this is taking quite a bit longer than normal. Eventually, I just wipe it clean, dry it off, and rinse it. For this next part, wear eye protection and hand protection. Ferric chloride is some nasty stuff, and it's just no fun when you get it on you. If you're going to be doing large batches or anything that's not really in a small container, then you really want to put on a full Tyvek suit. The problem is, once it gets on anything at all, it just stains permanently. As you can see, the sink has had like a few drops on it here and there, and ferric chloride's going to stay there stained for a long time. Now we move into etching. So for this part, I just pour enough etchant in, ferric chloride in this case, to coat the board, and I start rubbing it. Sometimes you can warm it up some, don't do too much, otherwise it's going to release a lot of chlorine. And you can see I messed up because I overexposed. There were certain parts of it that didn't really release all of the wrist-on, so I had to go back over it with a little bit of alcohol. That makes it so that you can actually get off the remainder. Alcohol will damage the exposed and cured wrist-on, so don't use it too much, but it will get you out in a pinch here. Instead of having to throw away the board, I was able to keep going. I prefer to rub. You don't necessarily need to rub. Rubbing just makes it go a little bit quicker. So keep going over and over and over, just looking at it, trying to make sure that everything's about even. Sometimes I'll use a paper towel to help rub it. And here you can see I'm trying to just make sure everything is right, just doing some visual inspection, cleaning it off just one more time here, getting it just right, seeing anywhere that it hasn't quite etched yet. One of the best ways I've found to see if your board is properly etching is to hold it up to the light and see where there are any remaining little pieces of dreck that need to be etched off. As I noticed, there was some on one of the USB connectors, so I'm going over it right now with my thumb, really trying to make sure that that gets completely etched and nice and clean. Once you're done, take it out, dry it off with a paper towel, and then rinse it. Try to avoid getting too much of it down the drain. You can't just pour this down the drain. So take it to your local waste facility that can handle hazardous waste and give it to them. The problem is, if you pour it down the drain, it can eat some of the fittings on the pipes. Our circuit board is almost ready for prime time. There's no breaks or anything else that I can find on this board, but we still need to get the mask off. So we do that with acetone. They recommend sodium hydroxide, but I've had a lot better luck with acetone. Now, all we have to do is take out that outer layer, and the way we can do that, just pour some acetone in a dish, and then over the next moments what will happen is the top will simply schlup off. You can watch that happen right now. As it's coming off, you just start to take it off with some paper towels. You'll see that the goop kind of sticks together, and you can pick it up with the paper towels, so you don't have to pour this down the drain or anything. Take off more and more. Normally I'll let the acetone completely evaporate on these paper towels before I try to throw it away anywhere. That's just because it starts to eat through whatever I have the paper towels on.
Now we have the circuit boards all kind of put together. We're going to have to use aircraft shears or some sort of cutting device in order to get them back apart. I use aircraft shears. These things are great. Tin snips also work. And you just cut them into the pieces and cut it out how you want.
Here's the gorgeous circuit board. Look at that fine pitch. Oh yeah.
If you're interested how to finish off boards, I have a video on how I do solder paste in my components right here. It's pretty instructional. It gives the whole path all the way from circuit board to finished product. And if you're interested in other videos, don't forget to hit subscribe. Thanks for watching.